Welcome to the December 7th, 2023 meeting of the City of Raleigh Appearance Commission. My name is Adam Walters, and I am the chair of the commission. The Raleigh Appearance Commission is a public body appointed by the City Council that exercises both advisory and quasi-judicial functions. The Appearance Commission's responsibilities relate to zoning and other land use matters, as well as the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the city. Today's agenda includes requests for design alternates from the city's Unified Development Ordinance. When hearing requests for design alternates, the Appearance Commission sits as a quasi-judicial body and conducts an evidentiary hearing on the request. That means it's like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this commission must make its decisions. The Commission's decisions are constrained by the standards in the city's ordinance and the facts presented at the hearing. The Commission hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The Commission must base its decisions upon competent material and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. This meeting is open to the public and everyone is welcome to watch. However, participation in the evidentiary hearings is limited. Parties have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standards. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, the Commission needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on safety, traffic safety. With all that said, we will now open evidentiary hearing for item DA 13, 2023 on today's agenda. Casey, will you introduce this hearing? And before you get started, allow me to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the subject property for this case is located at 14501 Falls of Noose Road at the northeast corner of Falls of Noose Road and Forest Pines Drive. The property is zoned...
Casey, can I just pause for one
Yeah.
second? Is there any way to make this screen work? We could just look behind us, but is it? No, it looks like it's off. Okay, we can just look at other screens.
We'll waste the time looking for
Okay,
it.
sounds good.
All right, the property is zoned commercial mixed use, 5 stories, with the parkway frontage and in the Urban Watershed Protection Overlay District. The applicant proposes to redevelop a portion of the existing parking lot with a fuel center. The fuel center will be located on the portion of the property that happens to be closest to Forest Pines Drive. The applicant is requesting one design alternate, and that's to allow the proposed service area to be located in front of the building. The term service area in context of the Unified Development Ordinance refers to areas that where solid waste and recycling dumpsters are located. So service area screening requirements dictate that those service areas be located to the side or the rear of buildings and be screened from adjacent properties and right-of-way. They must also be screened by a solid wall and gate at least 6 feet tall. Here are the 4 findings that must be satisfied in order to grant a design alternate for service area, landscaping, and screening requirements. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and then we can turn it over to the applicant to present their request.
Okay, thank you, Casey.
Yep.
Anyone have any questions for Casey? Okay, I will now, the applicant will now present evidence and legal arguments in support of the request. As a reminder, any evidence and argument must focus on the applicable standards.
Thank you. Good evening. Matthew Carpenter with Parker Poe. 301 Fayetteville Street, here this afternoon on behalf of Harris Teeter with one single design alternate request. And if it's appropriate, we can have our one witness sworn in who would like to speak.
Okay.
Megan?
Introduce myself. Megan Fitzsimmons, 200 South Tryon Street, Suite 200, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202.
And what's your relation to the case?
Civil engineer.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'll start by providing a brief overview of the case, and then I'll call Ms. Fitzsimmons back up to speak directly to those 4 showings that Casey just mentioned. So as Casey went through, this site is an existing Harris Teeter store in the Wakefield Park Shopping Center. And so you can see it's a pretty large shopping center, sort of in the northeasternmost area of the city. Just to the right there of Capitol Boulevard, I believe, is actually Wake Forest jurisdiction. So this is really the northernmost area of the city. And you can see the full shopping center in the red outlined area there. And the Harris Teeter site is in the yellow outlined area at the bottom of your screen. And then the star there represents the approximate location of the fuel center, which will be located on the existing parking lot in front of the store. And so the request this afternoon is for relief from the requirement to locate trash collection, compaction, recycling collection, and other similar service areas to the side or rear of buildings. And so I want to be very clear that we're not asking for relief from the screening requirements. We're going to be screening the dumpster fully with architectural materials we'll get to in a moment. But the request is just for relief from the location requirements. And so the reason for that is really because of the unique nature of the building as a small sort of utilitarian fuel center kiosk, that it makes sense to locate it behind that building and have the kiosk facing Harris Teeter. And again, these are the 4 showings that will put forth evidence in this hearing that we have met each one of these requirements. And so that at this time, I'd like to call Ms. Fitzsimmons back up to go through her testimony to each of the 4 showings here. So. Do you state your name, address, and education experience for the commission?
Yeah, so Megan Fitzsimmons, address is 200 South Tryon Street, Suite 200, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202. Education, received a civil engineering degree from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. I've been working as a civil engineering analyst for about 4 years, and then a licensed PE in the state of North Carolina for about 2.5.
Yep, thanks. And so I'd like to tender Ms. Fitzsimmons as an expert in civil engineering. And then, Megan, what's your role been in this project?
So I've been the lead civil engineer on this project, and also just analyzing this project in terms of compliance with the UDO and standards.
And can you discuss a bit how the fuel center will operate on screen?
Yeah, so there's fuel pumps that you can see. There's 5 fuel pumps, 10 fueling positions, with a small kiosk that you can see highlighted in yellow, and an overhead canopy over those pumps. Fuel center will operate, obviously serving fuel to customers coming in and out. There's a small window up at the front facing the Harris Teeter grocery store to the right, where they are selling, general snacks and stuff to customers, but it's only a walk up, not a walk in for pedestrians. And there's a bathroom and just a small storage area in the rear of that kiosk.
And is there a reason that can you talk a little more about the considerations that go into laying out the building and
Yeah.
the trash?
For sure. So when we typically lay out these sites, we try and push the fuel centers, if it's going to be in the parking lot of an existing grocery store, far enough away from the parking for the grocery store customers to make sure that the site remains safe for pedestrians entering and exiting the grocery store. A lot of times that's further back from the grocery store, but still accessible for customers to be able to use the grocery store and the fuel center as well. We also make sure that the kiosk can face all of the pumps so that the attendant sitting inside is able to still see any of their customers fueling up, just from a safety measure, being aware of what's going on. And then we usually typically try and provide the dumpster enclosure location pretty much as far as possible away from the circulation of the fuel center, so that any service areas are not being serviced nearby pedestrians or any customers trying to fuel up their cars.
So can you talk about how the layout would change if we didn't receive this alternate and had to meet the strict
Yeah.
word of the requirement?
So if we weren't able to go through this requirement, change this requirement, we would need to shift the kiosk building further plan west towards Forest Pines Drive, because it would need to be closer to the road than where the dumpster enclosure is currently sitting, as you can see in that greenish color. One would render, obviously, the dumpster a little bit closer to areas where we would have car circulation. And when those vehicles are being serviced, it would just be a bit unnecessary and in conflict with more pedestrians and more people trying to fuel up their cars.
Can you talk a little bit about the screening that we'll be doing of the dumpster?
Yeah, so as you guys can see here in the image on the right, that's a typical dumpster enclosure we typically show on a lot of these Harris Teeter fuel centers. Got two of those large barn doors on the front, and it's usually wrapped in a brick enclosure, the brick to typically match the brick being shown on the existing grocery store. So we try and compare the architecture on both of those. It'd be an 8-foot tall dumpster enclosure and would meet all of the standards of the UDO at the City of Raleigh.
And I think the height requirement in the UDO for the wall is 6 feet, correct? So
Correct.
it'd be taller than that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fitzsimmons. At this time, I have no further testimony from this witness, but if the board wants to ask her questions, it'd be a good time.
Thanks.
So I'll just quickly summarize the evidence in each of the 4 showings. First, Ms. Fitzsimmons testified that the design alternate is consistent with the intent of the landscape and screening regulations. As she testified, we're not asking for relief from the screening requirements. We'll be, going above and beyond those requirements, but only the location of the building. And then second, she testified that the DA does not substantially impact the comfort and safety of pedestrians. And she further testified that without the DA, that there will be an impact to pedestrians and customers of the fuel center and the grocery store by moving that dumpster location further into the site. And then third, she testified that the design alternate utilizes other architectural or landscaping treatments to create visual interest. Again, the brick will be chosen to match the kiosk building and the existing Harris Teeter store. And then finally, the approved design alternate is considered equal to or better than the standard. The strict application of the language would require the dumpster moved further into the parking in the existing Harris Teeter site, with the kiosk moved further back, which could create conflicts between dump trucks and other service vehicles coming through that area. So at this time, we thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions right off the bat?
Do we need to confirm who's participating in voting first? We have 11 people.
Yeah, we can do that. Well, it would just be all the regular members, I think.
So Megan and Jonathan are regular members and not here, so I need 2 alternates to designate.
So could all alternate members raise your hand to indicate which ones? Catherine, Jason? And okay, so I think Catherine and Matt, you all are the most senior alternate members, is that correct?
I feel senior, so yes.
So why don't we move ahead with votes from Matthew and Catherine?
Sounds good. I do have a question. Can you just talk a little bit about the topography between the parking area and the fuel station, and then Forest Pines Drive, and also vegetation between the two?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'd
so
like,
before you do that, let me just add to that. I think because my main concern was about that. I think, the number one in the screening, C1, ends talking about the view from adjacent properties or public street right of way. And I think that you all did a great job talking about everything on the property, but haven't talked about the adjacencies, and that's really the main
You
thing
want to
here.
speak to that?
Yeah, I can. I don't have the exact dimension pulled up in front of me right now, but I believe it's close to 100 feet from Forest Pines Drive is the start of that retaining wall and the parking that you're seeing today. The retaining walls, and again, I apologize, I don't have the exact elevations with me right now, but it's probably close to 15 to 20 feet. Parking lot being higher than the road below it. But from a site view, when you're sitting on Forest Pines Drive looking at the parking lot, it's not visible from the road. It's very heavily screened by landscaping in that area, and none of that landscaping is planned to be disturbed with this fuel center development.
And I think in a similar vein, that retaining wall looks like it wraps around the planned south side of the site. Okay, because I was
And-
going to ask why you can't locate the dumpster enclosure at, like, what would that be?
So it
4 o'clock
wraps-
or 5 o'clock on the, around that curve, but there, it looks like the retaining wall is almost tight to the drive there.
It wraps the entire parking lot up until, if you see the jut kind of in, it ends like on the right side of that, even closer to the grocery store itself.
And one might even guess that the retaining wall is probably much less attractive than almost anything else that could be done.
Honestly, it's not even very visible from the road because of the landscaping in between. Yeah, there's landscaping all the way around, and the retaining wall is all the way around as well.
And will any of the trees between the dumpster, the parking along that west side, and Forest Pines Drive get impacted by this project?
We're not planning to disturb anywhere outside of the parking space, the existing parking space location, so we don't touch that wall at all.
Okay.
It looks like there's a riparian corridor or stream buffer on the plan south.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So is that a Neuse River buffer
Yeah,
zone? That, I mean, just, that would just add to the argument that
yeah,
it won't ever be
we
touched.
can't physically touch it. We're not allowed to.
And
because
there's
of that
an
buffer.
easement on the eastern side. Is that a
Correct.
utility easement?
Correct. Yes, there's a sewer easement and storm easements that run through this area. So there's also designate the location of that dumpster enclosure because we can't really shift it further, I guess, plan east unless we go even closer to the grocery store.
How much trash is generated by one of these facilities? Like, how often are they taking trash to this dumpster?
Add another person.
Yeah, could I call Garrett with Harris Teeter up to speak on that?
Sure. Yeah, it's almost like, could you just use the other?
I need to swear him in too.
Yeah, we will.
Use
Yeah.
Harris Teeters.
Just introduce yourself, your relation to the case, address, name, and then I'll swear you in.
Garrett Marvetts, Harris Teeter Real Estate, 701 Crestdale Road, Matthews, North Carolina. I work for Harris Teeter as the real estate manager, so I decide essentially where we install these fuel centers. I work with the grocery stores as well, deal with all the real estate needs.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. Proceed.
Yeah, so I mean, you can think of what you do when you go to a gas station. So the first thing you do is you go fill up your car. Also then start clearing out trash, whatever it might be, McDonald's bags, et cetera. So it does generate a decent amount of trash, but not a ton. So instead of hauling all that trash and whatever that may be through the parking lot and then through the grocery store and into the back room, we put the dumpster out there. It's not a ton of trash, but it is regularly picked up weekly or so.
That answer your question, Chris?
It did, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, this is just a point of note for setting precedent. I think generally with cases like this, this one seems pretty cut and dry. But generally with cases like this, elevations, perspective photos, context graphics, where that get at some of the questions that we're asking would be really helpful. So just for next time and for anyone watching, that's the kind of level of expectation of graphic representation and case that we're looking for to fill some of the intent. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions or thoughts. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any members of the public here? Hearing no additional questions or presentation of relevant facts, the commission will now close the hearing and bring the matter to the table. As a reminder, the commission is tasked with deciding if, based on the evidence presented, this proposal meets the applicable standards. This decision cannot be based on personal preference of commission members. Rather, it is based on standards and evidence. If based on its deliberations, the commission requires additional evidence, the commission will reopen the hearing. Anyone have any thoughts, comments, motions?
Do you have any comments just on plantings around it, you or Martha?
I don't. Honestly, from what I can tell from this little information that we have here, it looks like it wouldn't really be seen by anyone. I know there are required plantings around dumpster enclosures that will probably happen, but I don't.
They have evergreen shrubs on the planting plan, so
Yeah.
box is checked. But
Yeah.
It does seem like the back corner is close enough to the retaining wall, though, that you might not be able to fit the required plantings around the most visible corner. So I kind of wonder about that.
Yeah.
They're squeezed in there. I think it'll be fine.
I was just going to comment that I know that technically is the front of the site from Forest Pines Drive, but it's really the rear of the site from that internal driveway that this project is actually seen from. You don't
Yeah.
see this project from Forest Pines Drive.
Yeah, for all perception
Yeah.
sake, it's the most unseen part. So in that sense, I certainly think it meets the intent of the code.
Yeah, I think knowing the adjacent uses are going to be forested for the long term makes it pretty clear to me. But
Yeah, I agree, and I think the putting it kind of away from the traffic pattern of just pedestrians and pedestrian movement and stuff going to and from Harris Teeter as they're going through the parking lot. It seems like that's the best area. I mean, I'd hate to see it in the parking lot somewhere, in the middle of a parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The commission's written decision will be adopted when the minutes of this meeting are adopted, and the written decision will be provided to the applicant and other parties with a right to such notice following the adoption of the decision. Thank you. I think the only other thing we have on the agenda are the minutes from October 19th. Just a reminder, this was the non-QJ meeting in October where we talked about the Commerce Place project. Anyone's welcome to make a motion. I'm just reading through them now.
I wasn't here, but they looked good.
As far as I can tell, these look accurate, and I would make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I didn't realize until I read them that Marcus Tuttle resigned.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's too bad.
Yeah. This ends the quasi-judicial portion of our meeting, so we can end the recording, I think, at this point. Casey, do you have anything else you want to talk about tonight? Well, while you're thinking about that, I just want to welcome our newest member, Shravya.
Hi.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much for being here with us. We're glad to have you. Would you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Shravya Suryadevara. I work as a professional traffic engineer for a transportation engineering firm in the area. I mean, it's a global firm, but they have a local office on Fayetteville Street. So work as the North Carolina traffic lead in that group. So from a work experience standpoint, I went to NC State, did my master's in transportation engineering, and kind of worked with DOT a little bit, and then kind of worked on the private side after. So my experience is more in traffic. Did a little bit of development work, but I also like worked with a lot of city municipal clients and DOT entities for a lot of projects. So that's my